telling us that we should, so.
We're good to go.
All right, I'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Welcome everyone to the January 13th meeting. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting December 9th. Everyone's had a chance to take a look at them. Does anybody have any changes they'd like to make? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 9th.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 9th, 2024. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of the general fund vouchers 81,930 through 82,022, voiding 81,965 and wire transfers 2025-0171 through 2025-0239. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the general fund vouchers and wire transfers as read.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the general fund vouchers as read. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the public comment section. Anybody's got anything they want to say? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our board business, excuse me. First item of business is the approval of our resignations.
I do have one resignation. It's an assistant coach. So Mark Gatsky, who has been an assistant coach with football and baseball the last couple of years, is resigning from those positions. He's not a teacher on staff, but works in town. He has had a job change and is not going to be living in the area anymore, so reluctantly resigning. And he wrote a very nice resignation letter and just said, he's enjoyed his time, but he's had a job change. So.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resignations.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of our hires.
And none on there, so none to hire.
All right, the next item of business then is our strategic plan scoreboard review.
Okay, yeah. So this is, follows our strategic plan calendar. And so we have here in January to look at specific parts of the scorecard. And so we've got portions of Pillar 1, specifically the part that is about encourage future goals. And we've also got Pillar 3, engagement for school to work or dual credit participation. And then also Pillar 4, which is operations, and we're going to talk a little bit about fund balance, leading indicators, and I'm going to talk a little bit about update the facility plan and priorities for that. So, and we're doing, if you remember when we worked with Dr. Sarin, we talked about leading indicators and lagging indicators. So leading indicators are the things that you do kind of the check-in mid-year or early on to see if you feel like you're on track or making progress towards your goal. And then your lagging indicator is your end goal, your final data point that you're looking forward for the end of the year in the spring. So we've got some leading indicators to check in on here. So the first one, again, is Pillar 1 and encourage future goals. And it's mainly going to be Mr. Melberg and Mrs. Powers, and Mrs. Anderson at the elementary scorecard doesn't really have that part on Pillar 1 as part of her goals. And then I'm kind of in the same boat with the District 1. But if you guys want to open up the probably start with the, well, like I said, elementary scorecard is listed in the documents first, but there is no, and if you want to look at it, you can see there is no portion there related to those leading indicators for Pillar 1. So I guess the next one on their special ed, so Mrs. Powers, do you want to go first, or Mr. Melberg, do you want to go first? Up to you guys how you want to.
That's fine.
Okay.
For Pillar 1.
Yeah. So if you guys, I'll give the board a chance maybe to get the, so look at.
I have paper copies if they want.
Okay.
I'm good.
Just up to them.
The special ed scorecard and go to Pillar 1, scroll down a little ways to the second page, encourage future goals. Everyone got that part?
Okay. So, we had started a goal tracking sheet that I created for the special ed high school teachers to track our 10th through 12th graders on the 4 different areas of either, completing their transition skill interest inventories, having DVR services invited for IEPs, and going on like college or tech visits and or a local work experience site for students with disabilities. And then still working on planning a transition event for our high schoolers with disabilities. So looking at the goal tracking sheet, because not every student has had their yearly annual IEP or anything like that, so some of the numbers will the first one was 71% of our students with disabilities, grades 10 through 12, have done at least one of those, of the 4. 23% of them have done 2 strategies, and 1% has done 3 different strategies so far. And some of our kids have done where they've either done some work experience or they've already done some college visits or tech visits, but they haven't had their annual IEP yet to have like DVR invited or...
Can you remind them what DVR is?
It's the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, and it's for students and adults with disabilities that helps them do things after school with job searching, applications, job training, how to figure out how to apply for an apartment, all sorts of different things that they can help young adults and students with disabilities.
So with the goal being that by the end of the year they would do 2 out of those 4 strategies.
Yes.
And so right now with 71% having 1 strategy done, would you feel like you're on good track? So
Yep, we'll get to that. We'll get to that
Yeah.
for at least 2, if not 3.
Good.
And then
Let's do pillar 1. Well,
okay.
yeah,
That's all I have. That's
let's
all
have
I have
Mr.
for
Milberg do pillar 1 maybe
so
too.
He can go to pillar 1 then.
If not,
You have pillar 1 open for
is
the
that
high school?
yeah.
This should be CLHS, and then if you scroll down to encourage future goals.
Second page.
Good. All right, so there's, under encourage future goals, 3 different goals that we have set. So the first one is 95% of in-person students will complete 100% of their grade assigned Zello lessons each year. If you remember, Zellos it used to be called Career Cruising. It's our college and career readiness software that kids go through. There's all kinds of grade level assignments that they do, and it helps them build a portfolio and encourages them to look at different opportunities based off of their interests and what they want to do after high school, whether that's college or career readiness. And so our goal is that all of our kids are in there and they're completing those grade level assignments. So at our checkpoint right now, we have 14% of our students, 7-12, have completed all of their grade level assignments. And you're probably thinking we're halfway through the year, we should probably be closer to 50% on that. A couple of things. One, we're kind of building, this is relatively new to us. We've done Zello in the past, but not to this extent. And so we're kind of building the plane while we're flying it here. And so our CT department has things in place for each grade to complete these. And then with that, right now our 7th and 8th graders are going to do it in their exploratory class, in their business class, and in their class with Mrs. Hunter, which doesn't start, both of those do not start till the 2nd semester. So 0% of our 7th and 8th graders have started this, but they will complete all of it once they start in their 2nd semester exploratories. And then our 9th and 10th graders are doing it in their health class for the freshmen, and our sophomores are doing it in their with Mrs. Hunter as well. So those students
half of those classes have that first semester, the other half have it second semester. So 50% of our 9th and 10th graders haven't started this process yet. And so that number is going to jump up quite quickly once we get to the second semesters. We'll get all of our 7th through 10th graders in there. Any questions on that first goal? Second goal, all in-person students will fill out an academic goal sheet. We did this early on in RAP. This is, we do monthly check-ins. The kids check in on their progress of achieving those goals. We've done, encouraged parents during parent-teacher conferences to have conversations with RAP teachers with those goals. Happy to report that 100% of our kids that are in person have completed that goal sheet and are doing their monthly check-ins as we speak. And the last one is all in-person students will be provided opportunities for college visit or workplace shadowing. And so we have a tracking device on everything that we're doing for field trips, different opportunities for kids, all 7 through 12, with the goal that 100% of those kids, everybody every year will have an opportunity in one or the other or both. And right now, 76% of our kids have either done something or are scheduled here in the coming weeks to have one of those opportunities. In fact, we've broken down, I think we're at about 32% of our kids have done more than one of those opportunities. So I'm pretty confident that 76% is going to turn into 100%, because a lot of this stuff, we'll do more of this in the spring than we did in the fall. Questions there? Do you want me, as long as they're in there, do you want me to do my last one?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so then pillar 3 is engagement, leading indicators for school to work or dual credit.
Yeah, so this is under pillar 3, which is community connections. The goal there that we're looking at is we're going to increase our rate of participation by 6% in either school to work or dual credit programs. So kids that are high school kids, juniors and seniors, getting college credit for classes they're taking while they're here, or getting high school credits for some sort of work program like our youth apprenticeship that Mr. Larson runs. And I'm happy to report that currently we have, last year it was 20% of our juniors and seniors were participating in this program, and we're up to 37% right now. So we've hit that goal for the year.
Already met it, yeah.
I think we have to find a different way to indicate this. Because if you say a 6% increase and then we're looking at 37%,
Yep.
I'm thinking we're 37% of our way to 6%.
Yep, okay, I got you.
Like, when we...
Instead of 30%,
Yeah, when we
37%
look
of our
at like
students.
reporting out of this, I'm more used to, we're either
Towards-
green light, we're doing good, red, yellow, we have some caution.
Yep.
Red, we're, like, something that's a little simpler.
Okay. As far as-
Otherwise, this math could be interpreted very differently by a lot of different people.
You're viewing it, just so I understand you, you're viewing that as when I put 37% there, you think we're 37% of the way towards our goal
Yes.
rather than 37% of our students.
Yes.
You are at.
So my high
Yes.
school math teacher always wanted me to label things, and
Yes.
he'd like me to do the same.
I like your high
Fair.
school math teacher.
I thought it made sense. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
So
it's because you were in a physical conversation where you talked about this. We're looking at it going, wow, we're not doing well.
That's good feedback.
So the correct percent would be what if you're looking at it from Christie's?
Yeah, so you're like 100 and some percent.
26.
We're not quite 200%. So
See,
we're in there.
that looks a lot better.
I'd have to check with my high school math teacher on that one.
Want to jump back to?
So yeah, we can go back to Dawn, to
Yeah,
Mrs.
for
Powers,
pillar
the
3.
special ed department is same thing, pillar 3, if you scroll down to.
So I sent out a parent survey and a survey to our students with special needs for our high school students for the survey. And the parents parent survey went to all parents, early childhood through 12th grade. I'm just starting to get some results back on that. My numbers are a little bit different than what you guys have because I went in this afternoon and just went to see if I had gotten a little bit more or anything like that. But starting with the parent survey for question 1 on how would you rate communications from the special education staff? We had 7, as of this afternoon, I had 73.3% of parents that rated our communication from the special education staff a 3 or a 4. And then on question 2 for the survey, how would you rate your comfort level participating and sharing during IEP meetings? We had 86.7% rated above a 3 or 4, and actually of that, all 86.7% was all rated as a 4. Wasn't even a 3. So, and then student survey results, I had asked them the same kind of questions. I just, the same question, and then the students that have replied to the survey, 100% of them have rated their communication with their special education teachers and paras as a 3 or a 4. 100% of them have done that. And then for question 2, on what's their comfort level participating and sharing during IEP meetings, because when they're in high school, we really want them involved and making decisions on what classes they need, what are their needs in those classes, what do they want to do after school, all of that. We had 81.3% rate themselves for comfort level and participating as a 3 or a 4.
Do we have a benchmark that we're trying to reach?
I didn't have a benchmark at that point in time.
Okay.
So I was just, this is the first time we've ever done it, like just a survey with them. So I kind of wanted to see what we'd get this year, and then, because I don't know how many parents will actually respond, of our special needs parents will actually respond to the survey to give me an idea of, what we're going to be looking at. And the kids I've gotten, even though they were supposed to do it at RAP with their teachers, I still have a few that haven't done it, so I'm still harping on them to do it, because I can't tell from the survey, who has completed, who hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I can tell by how many responses I've gotten that I know I have a few students left that still haven't responded. And of the parent survey, I have a lot of parents that still need to respond.
And you don't know what parents are responding and which ones are?
No, because it's anonymous. Because I want them to be able to tell what they really feel and think about it, and not have to worry that, oh, so-and-so answered a 2 on this, or so-and-so answered a 4 on this. I want them to be able to share their true, honest feelings about IEP meetings and the communication that they're getting from the special ed staff.
So yeah, first time given the survey. So yeah, at the end of the year, I think we'll be able to set a goal for next year based on what it looks like. So. And on the district scorecard, there is a portion for Pillar 3, and it's the district scorecard is just, we take samples of different, kind of a higher level. And one of the data point that we have on there is the one that was already shared by Mr. Melberg. It's, increasing our rate of participation in school of work or dual credit, and it's that, trying to move it up 6 percentage points. And it's at that 37%, same data that Mr. Melberg shared. Mm-hmm. But then I also have, on the district scorecard, above that is, we had said, so our lagging indicator, our final goal is, on the left side is we're using our parent survey from school perceptions last year. We're using that data. So the mid-year, we had said, okay, what can we do for a leading indicator to kind of do a check-in on parent engagement, because we're only going to give that survey one time a year, or even every other year we've talked about. So the leading indicator, we just said, we're going to check in on data like parent-teacher conferences and stuff like that. So we have the fall, elementary, and you've heard that at this meeting, 96% of elementary parents came to their scheduled parent-teacher conferences. And at the high school, it's a little different at the high school, and you've all had high school kids, so it's a walk-in, it's not a scheduled thing. So rather than track percentage of parents that attend, it's hard to, we just looked at the total number of meetings that were held. So if you take all the different teachers, add up, Mr. So-and-so had this many meetings and Mrs. So-and-so had this many meetings, you total it all up. So there were 279 engagements or contacts with parents at the first quarter parent-teacher conference, and then second quarter there was 181. So And it's a big dropout. It's pretty typical. We see that number goes down at the high school as the year goes on, and that's some of the reasons why we're doing some different things this year with the high school conferences, because the old, traditional way of parent-teacher conference at the high school is kind of needs to be updated. So,
Chris, which one are you on?
Sorry. So I'm on district scorecard, and then pillar 3. Sorry. So just our mid-year check-in, we looked at parent-teacher conference participation, and then we also looked at the rate of completion of the forms that parents fill out back at the start of the school year. So like after open house and the start of the first days, we had 62% of elementary parents filled out their back-to-school paperwork with kids, for their kids, like their medical updates and things like that. So that's typical. That was kind of higher than I expected. And then at the junior high, 67% of families engaged by going on to Skyward and updating their forms. So the question then what follows is, well, what do you do with all the people who didn't? Well, there's follow-up, conversations with them, like at the next, whether it's at parent-teacher conference or it gets sent home with the kids in a folder or whatever, to ensure, like at the elementary school, at the high school, junior, senior high, I know that they can, if kids don't get their paperwork turned in, they can go into Skyward and turn things off so that they has an incentive to get their stuff turned in. So, but that's just kind of an indicator of how many people respond, when we send things out. So, any questions about any of that?
Speaking of that, Don, what percentage of the parents responded to the things that you?
I don't have the percentage of the parents that responded, but there was, if I remember correctly, there's been 15 responses so far.
Out of,
well, we have 80-some kids, but some of those parents have more than one student that has a disability.
and I just bring that up because I think if you guys are going to try to get a response out of this parent, you'd have to have a hammer that clunks me on the head and tells me to stop and look at this, which is kind of a hard thing to do for other parents. You can do it to me, but...
Well, and we just, that's part of, that's a good point, is, like when we do a school perception survey too, I can't remember what our percentage was, and I just remember he said, hey, you were right, average with what other schools, and it was not ever, it's just hard to get people to respond, and I think, and it was only sent out pretty recently, so
yeah, it was just sent out
then it
last
was,
week.
you're going to get that initial flurry of people who do it right away when they see it, and then you'll send out a reminder, and then you'll get a few more that do it later on, so, yeah, good question.
I know we use school perceptions for this, but for some of this, but I think what some of the feedback I've gotten from parents in the high school level, as far as communication goes, I think what I hear a lot of is just there was opportunities available for my kid and I didn't know about it. And my kid's not going to come home and tell me about those opportunities. Things like being able to take school opportunities or work opportunities, those kind of things. I think I think we may be missing part of that in this scorecard. I don't know, but I think that's probably one of the biggest frustrations I hear mostly from parents in the high school level, is just they're not getting that kind of information where those opportunities come up, and as a parent, I could have talked to my kid about that opportunity, or maybe said, hey, why don't you think a little bit more about taking this opportunity? But a lot of times it's we don't catch that information. It's usually given to the kids, and it just doesn't make it home.
I think the other thing, like for you, Mr. Melberg, you're looking at 7 through 12. There's opportunities when you're talking dual credit, school to work, that are really 11, 12, that aren't available to the junior, senior high, freshman, sophomore. I think this is a beautiful start, but I think as we work through it, we're realizing, we might have to have a scorecard just for the junior, senior, or the junior high versus the senior high, because some of those things are not options.
Right.
So then if somebody's listening to the recording and they're like, why can't my kid get into dual credit? Well, it's not an option yet.
And that email will just go out to the parents
Yep.
of 11th and 12th graders. Yep.
I will say, in Mr. Melberg's defense, 2 out of the 3 goals do apply to the 7th and 8th graders
Yeah.
as far as the 7th, so, yeah, but, yep, good
The
feedback.
communication one isn't part of this one though, so that wasn't part of anything that I reported on tonight, but yes.
Yep. And that is one of our
There's a goal
goals, to
there
improve our
for-
communication.
Yeah,
So
well-
one thing I think is amazing is what I think it's Mrs. Rubel sends out the email for
The
grade
new
8.
junior newsletter.
I mean, if we could have something like that for every grade, it'd be amazing. It just, that's where I see communication as being awesome. I mean, I think it'd be a model for what
Yep.
I think parents are looking for when it comes to communication, but
I would also challenge that though too, because as we get into the senior high and you get into higher ed, then it becomes really problematic where the parents have been so involved and then you
Right.
don't get to be involved
I
at all.
get that side of it too, and
So I
there is
think-
a point where a kid has to grow up and make their own decisions too, but, as a parent, it'd be great to guide my kid too and be able to say, hey, I think you should think about this, but.
One of the things, and I'll just throw this out there, and I don't know how this would lend into any of what we're talking about right now, but one of the, with the way the world has people running around chasing their tails, to look at an email and read through it is a monumental task for me, to stop, shift my gears, and read an email from, I don't even remember the teachers' names of some of the kids. But in my professional world, I've got marketing things that I need to pay attention to, and I had the same problem reading the emails on what these people's analysis of the markets would do. So a number of them switched to a platform where they call and it's an actual voice recording of whatever they typed up, and I could listen to it. Now, I don't know if that would be an option. If I was getting reports from the kids and I could listen to it, I'd be more apt to do it.
We do have that option with it, similar to when we cancel school.
Well, school messenger.
Yeah, the school messenger.
Where you
I've always picked just email, but maybe we need to consider. 'cause
I didn't know if you guys were aware that was out there, but I
think
really
we
enjoy it.
text message, email, phone recording.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we've heard mixed feedback. Some people get annoyed with the calls, some people prefer a call. It's, yeah.
Well, when it's, yeah. But I'm speaking to one of like Mrs. Rubel's report. She would put it on that platform and then it would come via
Mhm.
voice. But
Mhm.
anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah.
I really want a Mr. Melberg podcast. I'd tune in every Monday morning.
This is what's going on.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, well, I have to.
You know, like those over-the-air announcements?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Come right to my phone,
Careful what you wish for.
including what you're eating for lunch.
They must be testing that, I think.
It must
I think
be.
because it's going off. They're probably testing it, yeah.
Okay.
We can hear the,
I know.
what's the new
I'm hearing
fire
beeping in the
system,
background.
beeping, the panels beeping, and
It's
so it's
not
been
okay.
it's been going off at specific time of day, and everything's good, but I think they're testing it, so. Okay, any other things for Pillar 1 and 2? Otherwise, I can jump into Pillar 4 whenever you guys are ready for that. And actually, not on the scoreboard, but instead, we can look at the scorecard, scorecard.
I like scoreboard. better. Want to know we're winning.
On the scorecard, that, and where
Which one are we looking at?
It should be the district level scorecard, and
I don't see it.
why did it cut off? Number 4 cut off. Well, and as I said a second ago, I really wasn't planning to use the scorecard as the data. I got the other documents down below, so I'll pull up the scorecard and I can.
Is this the one you're looking for? No, this isn't the one you're looking for.
He's going to talk us through it, Greg, just what you want.
All right. Close my eyes.
Pull up the, make sure I got the wording. I apologize for that. That page got cut off. Load here. So, in Pillar 4, we have the goal of maintaining or increasing our fund balance percentage at a level that avoids short-term borrowing to meet monthly expenses. That's one of the goals. And in the fall, our fund balance was at 16.7, which it kind of dipped, but I'm going to explain or remind everybody what we talked about back in July related to that. And then the other goal under 4 under operations was district will remain on track throughout the year to meet budget goals. And then under facilities, we had that the district will consistently address all high priority and deferred maintenance projects through the development, monitoring, and long-term facility planning document. And then we have the district will maintain adequate reserve funding for maintenance and facilities. So with those goals in mind, if you go back to the board document, and if we click on, if we want to do fund balance first. So if we do if you find the document that says 23-24 fund balance worksheet, and open that one up. And it's a spreadsheet that may look familiar from July when we looked at it. So this is a little worksheet I use at the end of July, and it calculates, and I was proud of myself because I'm not an Excel expert, but I put this together a couple summers ago, so I was pretty proud of it. But anyway, so it's a way to calculate. We look at our any surplus that we have after July 1st, and then we see if we have a surplus. If we make a transfer into Fund 46, which is our facility fund, then how much we can balance out, leaving any surplus to carry over into Fund 10 that we leave versus transferring all of it to Fund 46. And there's different pros and cons to that, right? Because if we don't spend it down, and let too much of it just carry over into Fund 10, that has a negative impact on our aid the following year. But at the same time, we're trying to build up, maintain our fund balance. So the thing I want to remind everybody is if you look at the very top part of the worksheet, the long strip going across there, and you notice in 23-24, so the Fund 10 balance as a percent of expenses. So you'll notice in 22-23 it was 17.08, and then 23-24 it dipped down, which was much less than what I had predicted or projected the year before. And one of the things that I learned is that I didn't account for when you make the Fund 46 transfer, that counts as an expense. So we made a big transfer of $650,000 at the end of 22-23 due to first year of the referendum, ESSER funds offsetting things. So we made a big transfer at the end of 22-23. So that went in as an expense. So that's why our expenses are artificially high there for 23-24. So if you look at the very top number, year-end Fund 10 year-end balance in yellow, it's $1,523,866. You notice that it went up from 22-23, but yet our percent fund balance dipped as a percent of expenses because the expenses were so high. So the other thing I want you to look at is, if you remember, we projected a balanced budget for 24-25. So if you look at the next box over, I have, year-end balance of $1,523,866. And if we look at the expenses that we have budgeted, you can see our expenses are smaller next year actually than what they were last year. So by doing, even if we just balance the budget and have no surplus, our fund balance jumps back up to 17.29. So my hope is that we'll actually have, like most years, have a little surplus at the end, be able to carry it and boost that up a little bit more. So, questions or comments about that?
What do we want to keep that number at, Chris, did you say?
Yeah, that's the magic question. There is no magic number. You ask all kinds of people in school finance, we talk to people in Baird, and they say, it really depends on your district. Because there are districts who get almost no state funding. They're all self-funded because they have super high property values. Mm-hmm. They keep fund balances that are close to hardly nothing, and then there are other districts that have have theirs up in the 20s. So what everyone, the answer they'll give, which isn't a hard number, it's enough to stay out of short-term borrowing, which is what we've been able to continue to do. We haven't done short-term borrowing since, I think probably 2008, 2009, something like that. So, but as our expenses, grow with time, as they just naturally do, things get more expensive. You got to keep boosting that that number up to keep it that way. So.
It's also nice to have when you have a roof repair. And
Right, and that's what enabled us over the years to build up that nice Fund 10 balance.
Yeah, I remember the days we'd have to short-term borrow every year. I don't remember what month it was, but we were always short that one month, and we'd have to borrow
Was it usually
100-some thousand.
November, December?
November.
Yeah, that seems to be when you're waiting for that next aid
Yeah.
payment to come in from the state. We get a big one
Beginning of
in December, and that's usually the month that most schools have to do it. But we haven't had to do it for a long time, so. So again, and we'll talk about the rest of the budget here, but my hope is that we'll have some surplus and we'll actually bump that up even a little bit more. So, any questions about that worksheet? And then related to that, I have, if you go, so there's a document called Expense Summary December 2024. And we probably don't need to spend much time on this because last month we did expense summary at the end of November. And if you guys remember, what we talked about is this report is just our, it's our monthly one that it just shows our year-to-date activities by object, and then what % of your budget have you spent so far at this point in the year, and then it compares like to last year, and how are you doing compared to how much of your budget you had spent, what % had you spent at this point last year, and I highlighted the totals under the different objects, and we'll note, just like last month, we're actually kind of beating last year a little bit as far as our % in most cases. I think
Good.
in everything. So, so far things are, on track. So as far as, a mid-year check-in on fund balance, that's what I have to share, I guess. Any questions, fund balance stuff? Then the next part was facility, and there's a document in there called Facility Maintenance Plan, if you click on that. And I'll give everybody a second to get that open. Facility maintenance plan. So that is, in fall of '23 and last year we had Kraus Anderson come and do an analysis of our facilities, and that's a really, if you recall, very in-depth document, that projects out for 30 years. But I took things from the executive summary there that were the big ticket items, also the things that we have known are our big ticket items, and they're on this list. Worked with Mr. Osmonroot, Tom, to all the different facility things that are top of mind for him. Checked in with the administrative team too about on the list and things like that. So we've got some of those big ticket items like the elementary HVAC and the chiller. We know is an ongoing longer term, medium range, short to medium range issue to address. We know that the high school parking lot replacement, we resealed it, and that's good for a few years, but we know that underneath that it's going to need to be replaced. It's from 1997, and so that's kind of in that medium range. We know we've talked about the bus garage and some of the exterior, updating the stucco was starting to crack a little bit. Longer range, updating that cold storage area, potentially putting concrete floor and putting heat in there, improving the heat and ventilation in there with those old ceiling heaters, some door replacement that's needed, general maintenance over there. We know that our high school generator needs to be replaced. It actually predates 1997. It was moved over from the old school. So got that as an item. We know that in medium range, longer range, we'd like to upgrade some high school HVAC as well. Some different items there we've talked about. We know we've got storage needs at the junior, senior high school. And then you'll notice a couple of things, so I have tentative timeline on the right, and some of the things I've highlighted in green that I think might be smaller, lesser expensive kind of things that I think can be short range things that we can probably address sooner than later, like the generator. And then if you scroll to that second page, There's some just small exterior finishes that need some minor repairs. There's some tuck point work at the junior senior high that needs some work. There's a crack to address in an upper wall in the gym at the elementary school, crack in the brick. Some things like that, tile repair in the exterior. We know that some signage needs updating. We have our sign at the front of the junior senior high building is getting dated and worn and needs to be redone. It's just, not looking as sharp as we'd like it to look. And we've talked about putting some signage on the front of the buildings to designate the different offices. We're switching to a new athletic conference next year, and so kind of an opportunity and also something we need to kind of update our signage in the gym with our new conference affiliation. So we've kind of got some of that in the works to get some new banners, but we've also talked for a number of years about that western wall and maybe repainting it and taking that old logo off there and just repainting it, that one wall.
Have we talked at all about a new scoreboard or fixing the light in the one?
If there's a light in one, we can fix the light.
Yeah, I think it was the boys' game against Grantsburg where we all thought it was 10 seconds and it was really 18.
That's easy to do.
The bulbs are easy to do, but we have looked into some scoreboards and some options there.
Yeah.
Scoreboards aren't cheap.
No.
Yeah. But there's
Yes,
some.
if there's a bulb out, we can replace it.
Yeah, that's easy to fix.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't catch that.
Just saying, because we're all like, I wonder how much time we actually have.
Yeah, no,
Going with
that's
the
easy.
cow on that one.
And then some other smaller items, just the windows in the press box are in rough shape. They do not open well. You have to be like a bodybuilder, power lifter to open the windows. They're not in good shape. And then we've gotten feedback too, the gymnasium bleachers at the elementary school, adding handrails to that for some of our guests that don't have as easy time getting upstairs.
As long as we're saying that, let's do let's see if we can put some on the high school too.
Well, we've got them on the adult side. We don't have them on the student side right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got them on the adult side. So we were looking to do the one side of the elementary.
It's funny, my stepdad asked
on the
about that
where they have the side they pull out for the junior high games. So
He's in.
we could certainly look at doing them more.
I didn't know that we had some on the
No,
one
you
side. I
don't
just
have
know that it's kind of a
handrails,
bugger for some of us to get
on the on the student side. Talked about some minor electrical upgrades in the concession stand inside here at the high school, and then some lower priority but medium range our elementary gym entry doors are showing their age for sure, and some concrete work at the elementary. So anyway, wanted to just check in mid-year on this stuff to show, hey, we're continuing to have these conversations. Some of them I think we can probably do here in the shorter term. And then that kind of segues, well, I shouldn't do that yet, but any other questions or comments about some of the stuff on here? This is kind of what we're using to guide ourselves here.
There's more that came in on that Crow Sanderson though.
Oh, much more.
This is just the things that you pulled out.
Yep, these were just like the real higher priority or kind of the more urgent kind of things. Yep. And a lot of those were no surprise when they gave us those too. We knew, like some of the HVAC issues.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, then that kind of segues into the next board agenda item.
Do we have a clear standard logo?
Yes. Yeah. The CL one, with the circle. Yeah, that is our adopted logo. Yeah.
Can we go back to the Indian head that we used to have now that the water's settled there? The waters are calmer.
That was pretty cool.
We can.
It was.
Maybe that's another item for future.
Osceola has it.
Chieftains. Is that a no, Chris?
I did not say that. I didn't answer.
Still have it over at the high school somewhere, don't we? The old high school. Anyway, sorry
Could be.
about that.
Could be. Thank you, Don. The Fund 46. So it kind of segues right into the next item on the agenda. Fund 46 plan, our facility plan. So the last couple of years we've updated it like in May or June, and since we're already talking about this stuff now, I would ask the board to consider updating this now and add some of these items that, you know, some of the bigger ticket things have been on there, but also I added some of those smaller items because without too much expense, you know, the signage out front, we're not talking about very much money. Some of the, you know, painting the gym and just some of those minor things with the handrails are not very expensive, and we're sitting with a healthy balance in our Fund 46. You know, we don't want to dip into that too much, and we are trying to build and save, but also I think we can knock off a few of these smaller items that are high visibility and high impact for people who, you know, look at the signs, use the bleachers, you know, that make good impact. So I added in some of those items on the Fund 46 plan. So.
And the
Just-
things that you crossed off are the ones that we've done?
Yeah, the things
Okay.
I left those on there for your guys' reference to, the high school fire alarms, that's literally being finished like right now this week. They're doing the final testing and turnover to the new system. And we tabled the kitchen HVAC. We did the elementary surveillance camera update last spring, so. Yeah.
Are we getting by in the kitchen heating vent?
We are. It was the cooling issue, you know, it was heating and, yeah, so they're getting by.
What'd they do, put a fan in there or something?
No, I have to ask Tom. He did a couple things with the roof vents and stuff like that, and it did help, so
Oh, good.
somewhat. Not
Because that
maybe.
was an expensive kind of a...
It was. It didn't, you know, completely solve it, but it improved things for them, so. And as the board said, kind of looking at it as a part of a solution of a bigger fix over here someday, if we look at, you know, our gymnasium and our locker room areas are not, you know, very, well, the locker room areas are, but not well, and the gymnasium is not air conditioned, if we look at it maybe as a bigger solution with that end of the building, so. So again, Fund 46, we can take surplus monies and transfer them in at the end of each fiscal year, and then we can only use those for facility improvements and upgrades. It's a great thing. It's a great tool to use. Any questions about what's on the updated plan?
No.
So
It'd be great to see maybe some estimate numbers too.
Well, yeah, this is not doing it. This is just saying we'll put it on our plan, and then
Sure.
next we would go and get estimates and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And anything above $10,000 we bring to the board for
Right,
approval.
right.
And anything, you know, if we're talking big ticket items like HVAC work, we're going to get multiple bids. So, yeah.
This is
Well-
just basically the document we have to have in order to have Fund 46.
Yeah, I've had questions, I've asked our auditors or maybe our partners at Baird, you know, just confirming like, you know, a project that we did, hey, we can use Fund 46 money for this, right? And their answer is always, yep, if it's facilities, and they said, and as long as it's on your plan. It's like, okay, yep, good reminder, we got to make sure it's on our plan that's been adopted. And you can update your plan anytime you want. You know, we can come back next month and add something to this if we wanted to.
So basically by us putting these things on here, we're giving you permission to get a bid if needed, and that we will talk about.
Or not even that, it's more just giving us fiscal permission to say we could spend Fund 46 money on these projects if and when we want to go there, so. And, you know, some of the things, like I mentioned, like the rails and the sign, I mean, we're talking probably maybe $1,000
Yeah.
or less. So some of those things, we wouldn't do multiple bids. We have a vendor that we know that we
Yeah.
probably work with or whatever, so. Any other questions?
Well, but I feel like you need an approval on this, right?
Yeah, I'm looking for a motion and approval on that one. On D.
I'll entertain a motion for the Fund 46 facility plan update.
I move to approve the Fund 46 facility plan update.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve the facility plan update. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. The next item of business is the review of our 23-24 financial audit.
Okay, so I gave everybody a copy of the printed, bound books that we get from our auditors. So the one document with the white cover is like our financial statements. I don't plan to dive into that much. Yes. If that's okay. And obviously those books are yours to take home and peruse, and if you get more questions about them that, you know, you can ask Eve or myself, and if we can't answer them, we can ask Baker Tilly to answer. And two, just so we know, in the last couple of years, the board hasn't chosen to do this, but Baker Tilly has said they will always come to a board meeting if we wanted to go over anything more in depth if we ever want them to do that. But the other book is the blue covered one is kind of maybe the more relevant one, but it's reporting and insights. So again, this is from 23-24 fiscal year that ended June 30th of 24. I made a note in the board notes for all of you that as typical, and if we turn, if you on the blue book, the book of the blue cover I should say, if you go to page 6, it talks about internal control matters. And that page into page 7, it talks about, as we have every year in our audit, material weaknesses or internal control deficiencies. And what that refers to is the fact that we have a small staff in our business office. So there are times where the same person who makes the bank deposit might be the same person, our bookkeeper, who does the bank reconciliations and balances our checkbook, so to speak. And having a lack of segregation of duties is, that's just segregation of duties, meaning having multiple people all touching, payroll or things like that to ensure that there's no fraud or ensure double check numbers, things like that. So as a small district and a small entity, we've heard from our auditors, and the board over the years has heard from the auditors that is a normal, common thing to be noted as a weakness for small and medium-sized school districts, for villages and townships and stuff like that. So that's again noted on ours, but then they also note that they did not find any evidence of any any mistakes or any corrections or errors are minor and not substantive, and no evidence of any kind of fraud or anything like that. So that was the normal kind of thing that they point out. And then also, and it's actually not noted, I don't think, in this report, but we also have a federal audit. They call it the single audit, and they come and audit just our federal things, our federal dollars. And food service is part of that. And one of the things that they made a note on this year as a deficiency, or they actually it had a worse sounding word. I can't remember what the word was, but it sounded worse to me. And they said, no, that's actually a lower grade concern than the other one, but it sounded worse. But so basically, when we have our food service claims, so students go through the breakfast line, the lunch line every day, and we have a tally and a number of kids who partook, and then that number gets looked at by our food service director, and then that gets handed off to our secretary in the business office, and then our secretary in the business office compiles everything and submits it for reimbursement, and that's how we use our food service claims, that's how we get our money for food service. And they asked if, they said, well, who's, you only have one person reviewing, and she said, well, no, actually our food service director looks at them first and then gives them to me, and we make sure that everything looks right and makes sense. They said, well, there's no evidence that a second person reviewed, and so they said the way to remedy that is to have our food service director needs to initial it before she hands it off to the secretary to do the claim. So we were having 2 people review it, but they want evidence that the second person reviewed it. So that's just an example of the kind of things that they talk about with us or point out. So otherwise, I was in the blue book, some things that I was going to point out. Again, we talked about the segregation of duties. Page 8 and 9 and 10, they talk about, on the bottom of page 8, no significant transactions that are outside the normal course of business. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management. Hey, that's good. No disagreements with management. We encountered no difficult or contentious matters. Any uncorrected misstatements are immaterial to the basic financial statements under the audit. So they will find a misstatement that they'll fix. Perhaps something was coded to the 24-25 school year and it actually should have been on the 23-24 school year. Things like that. As an example, it comes up. No non-compliance of laws. Did not identify any known or suspected fraud. No, matters or conditions of concern brought to our attention during engagement. So anyway, so that's some of the highlights, I guess. So, and then at the very back of the, I guess that was pretty much it. So, any other questions about the audit?
Yeah, Chris, I have maybe a comment too. So this board has a history of talking about this in the past, and we've talked about it. The board has discussed whether or not we switch every year, every other year between auditors. And I think some period of time back we decided to quit entertaining that notion because it's so much work to get another auditor kind of melded into our program, so it would be more expensive for the district to do that.
Yeah.
And a lot less painful to do that. So I just wanted to bring that up as a piece of the history of why we're still with who we're at.
Yep.
The other thing is I see that we have control over monthly and year-end accounting. Accounting reconciliations prepared throughout the year should be performed by someone independent of processing transactions in the account. That's one of our weaknesses.
That's one of our that's one of our segregation of duties issues. Yep.
So, and is that the only one that we've got?
There's also, I think it's one related to payroll. And I actually couldn't find the wording in here.
No.
We do documents that they share with us, and we have to write a management response, and it's written in there. But it's the same one that we get. It's every year they carry it over, but it's one related to payroll too, with segregation of duties.
I don't know if this question's been asked before in regard to that particular weakness, but how much would it cost for us to have an independent accountant reconcile these accounts?
Yeah.
And what accounts would they have to reconcile, I guess would be another question. I hire our accountant to reconcile our account at our business, and it's not that expensive.
Well, and Eve, feel free to chime in here. I mean, for example, payroll is an ongoing thing. I mean, we get one done, and it's every 2 minutes. Sooner one gets done, and you're working on the next payroll, and if we were to have another person come in and assist on that, that would be a lot of hours. As far as reconciling all the accounts, so that was that like our, so I mean, we do that probably every month.
When I get the bank statements. Reconcile it all, and I pass it to you to review. So my second eyes.
I review them as a second set of eyes. And ask questions, like let's see, well, what does this mean, or this looks different, and so on.
And I'm not suggesting that we do anything either way, but I'm just going to point it out because that might, I don't know how much time you put into reconciling accounts, but depending on what you have at hand, that portion of it I think can be relatively easy to have somebody hired, a professional to come in and do that portion for you to allow you to do something. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
But as a board member, we probably want to at least know what cost that would be. To if it's an inexpensive one, we probably owe it to the taxpayers to try to fill that one in.
Yeah. I don't know what an hourly rate would be for us to have that every month. I mean, I don't think it would be inexpensive. I think it might be kind of expensive. I think the payroll part would be very expensive. It's hours spent doing that. And then, and that's exactly the conversation the board's had over the years. I know from sitting in the principal's chair listening to it that what's the cost-benefit analysis on that? Like, we could spend that money and eliminate this from our report, and then the board has to weigh out, is that worth it?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we hired a full-time accountant, I'm guessing that would be pretty expensive, but be hiring a second Eve, I don't know if we'd find one. Business manager.
Do we have resources? Do we have people that we could call to have them bid out what it would cost to eliminate that?
We can check into it. I can check into that. Yep.
Just out of curiosity, I guess.
Yeah.
Then we can weigh the cost benefit.
Yep. Yeah, whether it's worth it to eliminate that. And just...
If you guys agree, maybe you could only think that
I'd agree with that.
And just to reemphasize what we said before, that, this finding is, they said you're going to find that on every district our size. So, but you're right. And then your point about whether we want to bid out a different accountant. I know years ago that was talked about, and I know that, you know, we'd go through a process of putting out requests for proposals for, you know, we'd want to bid it out to probably 3 firms. It would be quite a process, I think, and it's not that we can't do that or shouldn't do that every so often. One of the things that I've heard conversations about with other superintendents, they were talking about it was a year ago, like, who's your accountant and are you happy with them and so on. And I heard a lot of districts saying, you know, like they weren't necessarily super pleased, and staffing issues with the accounting firms and how like they weren't getting their stuff back in the timely manner like they needed to, wanted to. And I was kind of sitting there being quiet going, we're pretty happy with Baker Tilly, you know, they're just do a very nice job with us. And so, yeah, that's also that. The advantage is they are familiar with us, so they know what they're looking for, and they're pretty efficient about things. I think they would be more likely coming in every year to see something that looks unusual because they're used to what our stuff looks like. But you also weigh that out against every so often. Do you want to bid it out and keep people honest? And because it's not cheap to bring them in, but you know, it wouldn't be cheap to bring anyone in. But that's something the board can always consider too. But I will say this: that we're pleased with working with Baker Tilly. They are very, very professional, and they do a very nice job and easy to communicate with, and so good topics of discussion. But we can look into.
Okay. Anything else on the financial audit? All right. Next, Chris has a report on our ESSER fund usage.
Yeah. So. Talking about money again here. So I've talked about this for a month or so, and I want to give credit to Mrs. Karnick here. So, you know, Lori has assisted last year with Eve's transition, and then we've had her on a bit of a, I don't want to say retainer or whatever, but had her available to us to help out with some year-end processes that she's going to help us with, but also I had asked her to help find the data to put together this. So I said, you know, from 2020 to 2024, all these federal grant programs, the coronavirus relief acts, and we wanted to just kind of do a final, like, what did we do with all that money? And so this report here shows, so, you know, ESSER 1 was just for the school year 2020-21. It was $80,000. I say only. Sounds like that's a lot of money, but yet, you know, it went for a few things. So some of the operations for, you know, things like sanitizers and disinfectants and face masks, and also for virtual courses. We had a lot of kids that year on virtual during 2020-2021. And then ESSER 2 was the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, and that was 2021 and 21-22. And there was a lot more money tied to that, $335,000 in total. And that was used for, you know, we used it, you can see, for some personnel. And we, you know, for example, we added an additional bus route for the town, you know, the closer in students, and that drew so many kids off all the buses and reduced the crowding on the buses for spacing is just one example. Food service stuff. And again, operations, supplies, cleaning supplies, sanitizer, and so on. Virtual school classes. We used it to pay for our federal single audit that we had to do because we got so much federal money. Some HVAC, that's where we did that big project. There was the controllers upgrades at the high school back then. That was when Mr. Ernst was still here. So I'm not going to go into all the details here. ESSER 3, as you see, much more extensive. So that went from 2021-22, 2022-23, and then 2023-24. We closed that out last year. And that was a lot of money spread over those 3 years. $753,000 was what was appropriated to Clear Lake. So you can imagine big districts, how much money they got, you know. So there was a lot of money that was put out to public entities like this. But again, you can see various, you know, We used a lot of it, if you recall, some of the conversations, even with me here, when I became superintendent, like purchasing a lot more consulting services, educational consulting services from CISA 11. That was a big investment that we made. Being able to pay for some of our purchase services like school psychology and, again, some personnel with food service. And but what we tried to do was avoid spending the money on items that were going to be long-term expenses, right? Now some of it we did, some personnel things, but most of it what we tried to do is spend it on more one-time curriculum things, technology things, stuff like that. So if you remember, we did some pretty big ticket technology items, like we bought those whiteboards for all of the classrooms. We sent larger than normal amount of people to the PLC conference in the Twin Cities, paid for their, that conference is not cheap, and travel expenses that went with it. And then, textbooks. In the third year, 23-24, last year, a lot of textbooks. I had kind of put the pressure on the principals to look at what are all the textbook needs that we have. Let's try to spend as much as we can on textbook needs and software needs. That gets us projected into the future. So you can see that.
With the hopes that we would have a lot of our next number of years' expenditures kind of spent already to save us some money.
Yeah, trying to buy ahead, So now, the downside of that too is we have to be diligent about, okay, we're looking out 3 years, 5 years, when these things come due, we're going to have to budget in, making sure that we update our textbooks and our different software programs. Nowadays, so many of the curriculums that you buy aren't a physical textbook, but it might be a textbook and software that goes with it for the students to have, technology resources that go with it. So, but you can see in that third column a lot of books, a lot of software, a lot of educational resources. And then one of the other things that I want to point out is you see some of them are coded like a pink color. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the document, there's something called EBIS, EBIS, Evidence-Based Improvement Strategies. So this meant things that were different categories of, again, curriculum or interventions for students or tutoring or special help, things that are meant to help do catching up for academics and improve academic learning. And that fit in the category of EBIS. And what we needed, the requirement from the feds was, over the course of all 3 years of ESSER 3, you had to spend 20% of the funds on EBIS. Well, we far outdid that, which we knew we would. So the ones that are coded pink, you'll notice if you look at the bottoms, we had 288,000 of the total 753,000 was spent on EBIS, 38%. However, and I talked with Eve about this, I talked with Lori about this, we have, if you scroll back up, you see a bunch of items that are highlighted yellow. And those items are also, could have been coded EBIS, but we got to the point last year where we knew we were far beyond, so we just kind of quit doing it. So my point is just to show that we more than met, if you counted all those educational improvement, we'd be at 47%. So my point is just to show that we spent, the money invested in, curriculum and learning for kids, and, a lot of technology and hardware for kids and for teachers and for staff. So the point being, I think this is a document that we can be proud of and show, like, hey, we got this huge amount of stimulus money that was given to us. We made good use of it. We spent it on meaningful things and useful things, and it was, a big priority for us in the in the central office, but also as the whole admin team is talking a lot about how can we prioritize the money and spend it in the best way. So that's the whole point of this, is just to show, transparency. And I'll clean this up as far as the color coding, and then I hope to put it on our website, just if anyone ever says, well, what'd you do with all that ESSER money? Well, there you go, you can see it. So.
Very good, Chris, thank you for that report. All right, the next item of business then is the consideration and approval of the new high school course proposals.
Okay, so Mr. Melberg.
I can take it over.
Okay.
We
If you remember last year, you approved English reading and writing class. So what we figured out is, well, English is the only course that we need 4 credits for. So there's never been an elective for English. There's just been a freshman English, sophomore, junior, and senior English. And our seniors, especially those in our English communication senior class, that was a year-long course. We were keeping them here typically in the middle of the day when they had some of these opportunities to do dual credit or a work release, and they were kind of held hostage with this English class. We also saw the need for helping some of our struggling learners leading up to the ACT, that we could have a course there. So we created a semester-long course called English Reading and Writing. That gave kids an opportunity to get a credit and a half of English their junior year. So for some of them, if they chose, they would only need half a credit their senior year, which means after this year, we can change English communications to a half a credit and put it in the first semester. That is going to free up an English teacher and give us an opportunity to offer an elective in English like we do in science and social studies. Things like the forensic science class that we now offer, things like psychology, the Hamilton class, and social studies as well. So we wanted to provide one of those opportunities in English as well. So Ms. Nelson put together a proposal. She is calling it investigative literature. The idea behind it was it would give an opportunity to hit a lot of different parts of ELA and do it in units. So it's almost like mini classes. So some film study, drama class, poetry, short stories, and reading. I gave her two pieces of criteria when she created this. I said something that you think would get a lot of student interest, and something that we didn't have to spend $30,000 on curriculum. And so
She did well on the money.
Yes, I told her student interest and cheap. But I do think it fits perfect. Going to give more opportunities for kids to get those English credits and give them something different besides just a core requirement English class. So the proposal's there, broken down into basically just looking in literature, and answering the main question is going to be what goes into making great literature. And like I just mentioned, she's going to do that through film study, drama class, poetry, short stories, and reading. And looking for your approval on it.
And the students will be able to, what does the, in parentheses, be like the R11-12?
Those are the specific English standards from the state of Wisconsin.
State standards.
So
she
they're
picked
all
up-
connected to state?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Does this class at all connect with the community in any way, like a career connection or?
Community play.
Not necessarily, but what it does, by having this is that English communications class does, and also not holding those kids here lends us to increase that rate of kids taking dual credit and YA opportunities, because they've freed up their schedule because of this.
I have a question that's probably off topic, but I just, you know me. Where would podcasts fall into any of our curriculum?
Well, you could do tech ed. It could be in an English class.
It could almost be this, because some of it's a little bit drama.
Absolutely.
When you look at this in a text with the technology, so you're
I'm
talking
thinking
about
the
how
same thing you're thinking. It just, yeah.
But you're talking about how it
didn't-
fits. If you look at the what you will be able to do, any one of those standards can be connected to a position or a part of a job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that, it's just teaching kids better communication skills and analytical skills, which is, applicable for their careers, certainly.
Well, like produce clear and coherent writing, that is required in almost every job there is. So like that's where I would
If
say
that's
the
the connection we're looking
connection.
for, we can make all kinds of connections in any of our English classes.
Well, and here's what you're getting to, Greg, is make informed and intentional decisions about technology to use to engage in authentic rhetorical tasks for specific purposes and audiences. What's the right medium for the message?
Well, that's one way, but what I see is, I don't know, I might be ignorant, or I might, but
Well, you-
Why would I waste time working and trying to write literature out, when I can have AI do it for me?
Well,
You know?
but keep in mind that this isn't about writing literature, this is about investigating what makes good literature.
Oh,
So even if you use AI, you have to determine if it's good and if it's right.
I agree that we have a need for that.
Yeah.
well, I guess what
Should
I'm
be
get-
able to
what
weave
I'm
that
getting
into
at, I
this
don't know,
class.
is this an opportunity to start looking at what's going on in the world as far as, where we get our information from? Podcasts are making great gains, and do we have anything that's lending towards that? Do we have anything that's lending towards actually, okay, how are we gonna, what things are out there to AI can be used for, and how can we use them?
So we went, the three of us and a few others went to the Slate Conference a month ago with the idea in mind that it was all related to AI. And I'm presenting to the staff Monday morning that are in service on a bunch of different AI tools and how we can use it. And so, yeah, we're going in that direction, but we're also trying to figure out how we're going to navigate the policy side of it at the same time.
So would it be okay if the board said, this looks like a nice class, but maybe let's have something that's a little bit more integrated with how the world is going now?
Well, I think with AI, any class we're currently offering, including when we do offer something similar to this or whatever the board decides, that I think AI is going to be integrated in just about everything that we do. So I don't.
I think
So are you asking, you want an English class specifically for AI, or you want it integrated into more of what we're doing across the board?
Well, let's first see what's this one doing?
I think the struggle is that curriculum, especially this, is just the high level. What you're trying to get to is what are the assessments and lesson plans and activities going to be. That's not this spelt out. This is just the concept of it.
Right.
I think this is part film study, screen rewriting, drama class, and poetry analysis, short story writing, and modern novel reading. Students will embark on an investigative journey to answer the questions, what goes into making great literature. That's a fine class. I probably would take it at my age.
Yep.
And there's kids that'll probably want to take this and take what I have to say with a grain of salt. But what I'm saying is if we're going to create some type of a class, wouldn't that be an opportunity that we start to address? I don't see any AI really being used in this. I don't see anything about the way that information's coming in and out of our lives, how we're, you know what I mean? Of course, this is a literature class, but...
Right, but everything you just named, I assume you're in that first sentence there.
Course description?
Yeah, part film study, we can use AI within that. Scene rewriting, we can use AI to do that. Drama class, we can write out the plays using AI. Poetry analysis, we can use AI to analyze poetry. So I guess, and maybe we're looking at it from two different perspectives, I am looking at AI in education as how are we going to use it to make our classes better, how are we going to teach kids to use it appropriately and use it to their advantage and be able to learn from it, not specifically a class that teaches AI, more of a how are we using it across the board in every single class, because I agree, I think we're on the same page. I agree that the tool is, so one of the slides at the AI or at the Slate conference was the tool is there, so we're going to use it. You know, the guy made the connection with, he had a hammer and nails and said you're never going to ask somebody to push a nail into a board because the tool is there.
Mm-hmm.
For education, the AI tool is here. And so asking a kid to do something that they understand that AI can just complete this for them, that's going to be frustrating. So I think we're going to use AI in every single classroom, not specifically a class for AI.
Okay.
I think this class is limited only by the creativity of the teacher and how, I look at the novels or any of the media that she may use with the kids can be the most, can be the most contemporary kind of media, or it could be something that's older, and I think her intention is to have it kind of be a mix of the different parts and yeah.
And I think we also have to note that we're creating an English class that has to be, in order for a kid to get English credit, we've got to tie it to English standards. put out by the state. So we can utilize AI within this, but it is an English class. I need to tie it to those standards.
But if Mr. Larson's pulled forward a new class, he's not going to outline every single tool in the shop that class would use. He would
Correct.
still have standards,
100%.
and you'd use whatever
100%.
tools you need to
Yeah.
meet your standards. So if we think of AI as a tool, like a computer, a calculator, a hammer, we're not going to ever get that in these types of documents coming forward.
Or a podcast is a tool, or a podcast could be an assessment. You know, you're going to make a podcast.
Well, it's a piece of technology.
Podcast where you discuss your analysis of a piece of, you know, literature. You know,
So I've got the name of the tool right here.
that's what I'm saying. Just the creativity is the only thing that limits what we can do with it.
To give you an example, to your point, Christie, is Mrs. Hughes is currently using in her English classes an AI tool that allows her to put in her rubric, and that AI tool interacts with the kid to improve their writing. That would not be laid out in a class proposal for her English class. It's just a tool she's
Yeah.
using within it, and it's phenomenal.
And those will be the tutors of the future.
Correct. Yep.
Well, somebody pointed out we've been using AI assessments with tools like IXL and so on. They analyze if the student got the answer correct or not, and then they give them the next question accordingly to how they're responding. You know, so we've been in some ways using that. So it's a brave new world with you know, excitement and trepidation about all those different things, and that's what we actually have a tech committee meeting later this week where we're gonna that's our group our think group to help us, you know, navigate this and talk about how to, it's there, it's not going away. You know, it's like someone, you know, 30 years ago saying, or 25 years saying, well, we're not going to use the internet in school because it's got problems. You know, it's part of, you know, AI will be part of how it's a tool to help us do our work better. It's not going to replace all the work we do, but it's a tool to help us do our work better. But we're in the Wild West area right now where it's growing so fast and so new that it's a lot.
I also say that in talking to some other districts, there's districts that are in my mind, putting their heads in the sand because they're trying to stay away from it. And so I appreciate it because it is such an awesome tool that can help a lot of kids learn at higher levels and moving forward with it.
I guess, you know, AI is part of the question, or part of what I kind of wanted to bring forth, but, and nothing against Mrs. Nelson for bringing investigative literature as one of our English courses. My question more so is, are there more relevant English classes that pertain to the happenings of today that can help tool our kids for when they get in the world, or even when they're in the world today, disseminate information, discern the information, investigate the different modes of information, you know, to get our kids a little bit more well-rounded in that. Do we have any classes?
Critical thinking, right? How to think deeply and analyze.
Do we have?
I think that's what this class is exactly trying to do. I think this is a great example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, but this is investigative literature.
Yeah, but literature is a newspaper. Literature is, you know, it can be the most contemporary kind of thing. You know what I mean? It can be any kind of media.
Well, then why wouldn't any of that? That's not what this is. The course description has none of that in here. It has poetry, drama class. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my question is, this is fine, but do we have anything that's addressing any of these things for our kids? Now, do we currently have any classes
We have our
that...
English communications class, which is that communications piece. It's about resumes and that, you know, and using newer tools to do those things. I think that might be in our English department, probably as close as that I'm getting to what I think you're asking.
Social studies courses.
Social studies, yeah, I guess, you know, Mr. Moore's class, we used to go through newspapers. Mr. Williams' class, we'd go through newspapers.
Showing your age, Mr.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of my question, and that could be related to what we're looking at right now, or aside from that, you know, putting some effort towards getting some of these new courses that are in here, you know.
But are there other courses within the high school? Like, I think there are, where research, I think that's what you're really getting at, Greg, is reading newspapers, different things. The research piece of it. I can't imagine that we're not handling
Yeah,
that
absolutely. Our
in
civics
biology,
class, our
in social
civics class,
studies,
biology,
civics.
forensic science. Neil's doing a lot of neat stuff in his room.
It's to do any of that, you have to have a bigger topic.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to have a topic for context, which is why it's embedded in a course.
Right.
Because I would hope every course gives every student a higher level of critical thinking.
Right.
And the ability to find, you know,
Yes.
different sources and,
Mhm. Analyze their credibility.
you know, disseminate and, yeah.
Mhm.
Just think about every speech you would do, every paper you would write, every lab report you do, you have to back it up with some sort of fact.
Right.
Anyway, that might be off.
Claim evidence reasoning is
Yes.
happening all over the.
There you go.
For sure.
All right, groovy.
Are you feeling better, Greg?
Kinda.
I didn't say perfect, I said better.
Feeling okay.
Okay.
We can table it and I can go back.
No, I mean, if this is what we want to put forth, that's fine. I mean, you guys, you know where we're at, and you know, you have a kind of a half gist of what
Mhm.
this chair is saying.
Right.
I mean, that's all I need to do is, you know, share what, and you guys will do with it what, you know, you will.
Hey,
kind
Mike.
of thing.
Just kind of getting back to my challenge is that we somehow are connecting it with careers, and I last year I went to that thing at the school board convention, and really things are going that way. Instead of being college-based, more career-based. How do we connect each of these subjects, all of our curriculum to a career, so kids actually see what this is what they're doing with it, and it's also a great way. We've talked a lot about connecting to our community, and it'd be great ways to how do we connect this to our local newspaper, or even our Facebook page, our own Facebook page. How do we get students involved in our own Facebook page? Can turn into some kind of a journalism type, and just seeing how the careers connect to each of the curriculum.
Well, and back to Christie's point is, this is an overview of what
Right.
happens.
Right.
Ms. Nelson can go a million different directions
Right.
with this and make all kinds of.
Right. I mean, AI is a career,
So then- Tooling the teachers then with,
That process has started and
Yeah.
it'll be continued with providing them with different, Mrs. Hughes is a perfect example. That was a tool that was given to me by another principal. I shared it with her, said, check this out, and she's run with it, and it's been great. And so she's going to talk a little bit on Monday too about how she's using this as a veteran teacher, this brand new technology, and how it's not only making her life easier, but the kids are getting instant, basically personalized learning for them, without her trying to get around to 30 different kids in 45 minutes. And so, yeah, we're rolling these tools out. But the other issue is the tools are coming at us so fast, it's tough to figure out what the good ones are and which ones we need to avoid. And
right.
Well, to get back to your point, Matt, I do think there's connections to the community. I don't know if we're highlighting them well. Because I know, like, Mrs. Johnson's leadership class did some activities with the community, like the boxes around for the Arnell,
Yep.
and then the Feed the Starving Children, and they had to put together the posters and put together all of those things. So
She does an amazing job.
I mean,
she
some of-
does a lot of community
Yeah.
and tying and yep.
But some of those pieces are there, and then I think the even bigger thing is that's why we have some of our co-curricular clubs. I mean, I feel like we're trying to put a lot on one thing every time we talk about it, but we really have to step back and look at what are all the opportunities and all the things that students can engage in, and it's not for every single one of them at the same time. Like, throughout 4 years, you should do some of it, but I sometimes feel like our conversation is trying to slam them with all of it at once, and that's not going to work.
And part of our conversation with staff, especially with the CTE department, I think along the same lines that you're talking is, the goal that I presented on tonight about kids with workplace experience and college campus visits and things like that. We've been doing a lot of that for a long time, but we haven't tracked it. And so part of our strategic plan now is we're tracking it. We've got Mrs. Peterson created a sheet to help us track that, and I'll share that sheet with you when we report on this one at the end of the year, because you'll be able to see across the board in all the different areas the number of opportunities that our kids have had on college or college and career things that we've been doing all along. Some of them are new, but most of them we've been doing all along, but we've never tracked it. And so, yes, Mrs. Johnson's on there quite a bit because those kids have a lot of opportunities through our ag department to do a lot of those things. But it's not just her, it's happening everywhere.
Sure. Like our welding kids, are they getting down to Expo?
Our welding kids are in enrichment.
Okay.
That's the beauty of the strategic plan is that we're, like Mr. Melberg just said, it's forcing us to say, how are we tracking it, and and identifying those things that we've been doing, but let's do a better job of identifying it. And then how can we always keep looking to improve and do more and do better.
All right.
One last question.
Sorry. Yeah.
We have secondary school classes the kids are taking. The kids are going to enrichment. They're taking welding classes, and we've got the and I don't know what the program's called, where the kids will take credits.
Start college now or early college credit programs. Yep.
So in that, are there any opportunities for kids to go online and check out college courses from any of these online courses out in the world or in the United States? And what comes to mind is like the school model that we went through when we went on campus and took classes, I think might be fracturing right now. That being said, there's schools like, and if you guys are familiar with Jordan Peterson at all, from Canada, he just started a college first year. Jordan Peterson is a psychologist from Canada. He got ousted from their university system because he spoke up against a few things. And anyway, he had to fight a number of battles, but in the end, he kind of decided, you know what, you guys are not doing this correctly. I'm going to start my own school. He started his own school, and I think in the first year he had 3 million people. 3 million people signed up for these classes, and he went out to find the best of the best instructors to do these courses. Those courses are offered, they're out there. I think that segment of education is going to increase, and the others might decrease. I don't know whether or not, but as a student going to school here, they're not even aware of that. I mean, we see our online courses for Phoenix and what have you, and they're advertising for education, online education in that regard. And they might have courses that are good courses too, but my thought is maybe we should promote them to go outside of the boxes that we have provided, to let them kind of explore a little bit what's out there, because I think there might be more out there than what we're offering to them in that realm, and that might be something that kind of triggers these kids to be lifelong learners prior to when they're 50.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or 52.
I mean, whatever the course is, it's got to be from an accredited institution. I'm not sure with this new one whether that is or not.
To get credits, it would.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's a balancing act too. We want to promote early college credit or dual credit options. We understand too, as the fiscal body here, every one of those classes costs money. That's money paying out from the district, to take a course elsewhere, which, so it's a balancing act. It's like you want to provide different opportunities, and we want to do that, but we also have to understand the fiscal impact of that, or how it impacts our own staffing levels and things like that for our brick and mortar classes that I think we want to continue to always have in Clear Lake. But yeah, that's exactly the question of our time right now is the future of what does education look like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and that's the question of our time.
Is it Hope College?
Peterson College.
Peterson.
We really like Northwoods Tech.
What?
Northwoods Tech.
And I'm not putting any of them.
I'm
not
trying to
putting
find
any
this
of
thing
them
he's
down.
talking about.
But when we had our senior classes, that would be a fun thing. I wish I knew what was out in the world when I was 17 years old. Maybe there wasn't anything out in the world back then, But I mean, there had to have been more that a person could have, triggered a little bit more.
I'll give that. You just said that, and I was invited. Well, I shouldn't say I was invited. I was voluntold to come and be a guest speaker in Mrs. Peterson's careers class for the junior high, and to kind of share some of those experiences about growing up in Clear Lake, and what's your exposure to what your possibilities are in your career, and to kind of talk about that as like our experience of going to school, and what that kind of to provoke their thinking about just that is like, to make sure that you as a student make yourself open yourself up to possibilities of what are the careers in the world that are out there that I didn't know even existed when I was 17, and also to then how do you avail yourself to to prepare yourself as a student to have those possibilities open to you when you get to be an adult.
Exactly.
That's kind of that example of having starting those kind of conversations with students. Yeah.
And I guess I question the whether or not we would want them to have accreditation for this, because is that particularly the point of getting them to go outside and find more education? Some of these kids, they do want to go down that path, but there's kids that are going to go into the workforce that still have interests in things, but they don't know that those things are out there, or how to get to them, or what have you. You know what I mean?
Accreditation is just a quality standard of higher education. It's kind of like anything that you buy, you want to make sure that it's a quality product.
But that's
Because-
not of value to the kids that aren't going to be going to River Falls or through the WITC system. I'm
But-
thinking a little bit more of broadening them somewhere in their career for an interest type education. I'm interested in,
Instruction.
Well,
pick
and that-
something you're interested in and take a class on it.
Well, and that's part of what Zello does too, is that's a career exploration software, like we talked about in the plan tonight too. That is, kids take interest inventories and they get exposed to, okay, I have interests in our talents in these areas, and it may expose them to, hey, here's a number of potential careers that might be a good match for you. And then what Zello does is it says, okay, let's say you want to do this job. What type of education does it require? How much money are you likely to make? What, where are, so that's exactly what you're talking about. Zello is an example of a tool that, again, tries to stimulate those conversations for kids.
I was actually just thinking about that the other day. What percentage of our students go on to further education? Do we know that number? Or?
We do.
We do.
Don't have it at the
off the top
fingertips.
of my head. Yes,
I mean, if it's
we know the number
50%, what are we doing for the other 50% to get them career ready?
Well, and this is what I'm talking about isn't career ready at all. This is just interest and sparking interest in being a lifetime learner earlier on in life than I started. And I think as far as like that, I don't know what the cost is, but that type of education in that particular model is relatively inexpensive. And that might even be, he had admitted that might be.
And my kids are doing that. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek, but they're going on YouTube and TikTok and doing that already.
Yeah.
They are.
Well,
That's it.
to that, yep,
Your
that-
kids are like my kids. I mean, they're going on YouTube and learning all kinds of things.
That
Good
form
things.
of
There's all
thing.
kinds of
They know more
interesting
than I
things.
do.
Yeah, it's that they can learn.
There's truth in that for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just bring that up because
And this is freeing up time for kids to go outside and do the other things.
Mhm.
That's what I see as a benefit.
Yeah.
Because
And
that's where the kid
that's
is going to come to my work and learn about robotics
Yes.
and that side of things. and go, oh, I could see myself doing that.
And that really started with last year's English reading and writing class, and especially for those kids that are taking the English communications class, to free up that semester
Right.
to get them into a workplace is
And see
huge benefit for them.
Somebody taking this might go on to English 4-year
Correct.
something.
Yes.
Because they want that extra.
Yep. Where the English communications class is not designed for that kid.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as that's concerned, I'm all down with it too. I just had these questions and
A lot to take in.
I was gonna take it, when he's talking about dollars and figures, I was gonna try and incorporate them, but I thought, I wanted to get you a bit this time.
All right.
Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Anderson? or-
Is that a pretty quiet night over there?
All right, so where are we at?
So,
All right.
looking for approval for that.
I'll entertain
yeah.
a motion then.
I move to approve the new high school course proposal.
His second?
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the high school course proposal. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of determination of space availability for open enrollment for 25-26.
Okay, so every year we need to do this. Open enrollment period begins for the 25-26 school year in early February. And so every year in January we need to determine our space availability. If we fail to do that, then we're wide open and we are not allowed to put any limits on. So we specifically, oftentimes we want, now as a district that has some declining enrollment going on, we are wanting to encourage students to open enroll into our district. There are some districts that they don't physically have the space. They're packed already, so they limit things by numbers that way. The one area that we do is we've looked at special education students and our capacity there. And so like last year, we're proposing putting a limitation on some of our special ed numbers. For this, again, this is for new open enrollment students. This doesn't mean a student who's already attending here. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect students who are a resident who live in the Clear Lake district. This would be any new open enrollment applications in. If the student had an IEP, and what we're going to say, I'll show you here at the elementary level, we would say, we don't have space in our program right now. We're already strapped to the gills. So the first document there is really the most important one, but this is our resolution for what we want to do. But so we say by grade level, we don't have any restrictions that we need to do there by grade. However, by special education program or practice, non-resident open enrollment applicants will be denied if the pupil's IEP requires services in special ed or related services that are not available within current district programming. That is always the case. And then with consideration for availability of space, it's been determined that there's no open seats available for special education students in grades early childhood through 6th grade for non-resident applicants. And then it's been determined that there is one seat open for grades 7 and 8 for special education, and 7 seats open in grades 9 through 12 for special education. Now, the likelihood that we would get 7 seats in the high school is slim and none. We may get 1. So any non-resident open enrollment applicants for those would be denied. And then also we look at students who have speech-only services, meaning by having speech services, they have an IEP technically, but if they do not have any other disability, but their only therapy is for speech, it's been determined that there are 5 open seats for students with an IEP, which requires services in speech language therapy only for grades early childhood through 12. And again, the odds that we would get 5 is slim and none. We may get 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. Most students who are speech only tend to be in the 4K, kindergarten, 1st grade, that this is if we were to maintain our current speech language pathologist, who we have an in-person person this year is at 70%, and this is if we kept her. And if we went above 3, I believe we may have to purchase a couple spots on our launch therapies, which is our online speech therapy that we still have some students on this year. So 5 is the number that we put there. So, and the way that we determine this, we use a caseload factoring guide. And Mrs. Powers worked on that, and she and I worked on it a little before break and right after break here. So there are supporting documents there in the agenda that just show you the determinations of what we figured out as far as, I should say what she figured out, and then she and I reviewed how we come up with those numbers. So I'm not just making it out of thin air, but there's a student factoring table, and then we look at what is the age of the student, whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, and what is their disability, and you tend to add a factor score to that depending on the severity of it. It's just a guideline, and then the guideline number is 26. And again, that's a guideline. You can go a little bit over it, you can be a little bit under it, but that's kind of where you want to say, hey, that's a factor load of being pretty set for a single teacher to have. So that is how there's a chart then, the open enrollment space ability projection, that shows you where we came up with all that. So I guess I would ask you to approve the first document, and then what that goes on record in our minutes, and then that also gets put on our, that's for public record, and we put that on record now so that when we have applicants that come in this spring, we have that to go on.
I have never seen this before, Chris.
Well,
last year?
we did it last year,
Did
but
we?
I think you might have been gone at the January meeting last year.
So it's a new thing starting last year?
No, we've done it the last 2 years. Yeah.
Huh.
But I think you were
Yeah,
gone
correct.
January last year for sure, maybe the year before, but yeah, I know. And we just started doing the capping two years ago, I think.
Okay. All right, well, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the determination of space availability for open enrollment 25-26.
Second?
It's been probably moved and seconded to approve the determination of space availability. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is drawing a ballot order for school board election candidates.
Okay, so we don't technically need to draw because we have one position open and we have one candidate. Our incumbent, Matt Elsmore, is running for his seat again, and there was no other candidate who put in papers to run, so we don't need to technically draw any name out of a hat, but Matt will be the one name on the ballot.
He gets to be the first and the last. All right, then the next item of business will be the second reading of the following board policy.
There's a lot of them there.
Yeah, so I suppose we should,
We read through them last time.
I'm good.
Did we have anything to follow up on?
I don't think we did.
I don't think there were any
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty-
questions.
so I'll read through them and then I'll entertain a motion. Then the second reading of the following board policy updates: 164, 2340, 3120.08, 3213, 5200, 5505, 5610, 5771, 6423, 7450.05, 8395, 8500, 8531, 8600, 8601, and 8660. And then we also want to rescind policy 4162 and policy 8640.
Yeah, just those two.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the policy updates as read.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the policies as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. The next item of business then is the first reading of another number of policies. Chris,
7.
do you want to go through them?
Yeah, I can give a highlight of each, or I'll give the overview of each one. So the first one is 2131, Educational Outcome Goals and Expectations. I think this is a new policy for Neola. Yes, it is. And basically, it just reiterates, it's a model policy for them, reiterates what is the district's mission for educating students: academic skills and knowledge, vocational skills, citizenship, personal development, and gives obviously a lot of details under each one. And then the one option on the very bottom, district administrator, which is what everything says, meaning delegated, is charged with the responsibility for providing, through the district's curriculum, opportunities for each student to accomplish these goals, as well as a valid means for assessing the extent to which it's determined, or which is accomplished, I should say. So this is basically kind of a statement of just what we do and what we offer.
What is the point of this, Chris?
Putting me on the spot because now I remember. So it was December when I sat with our Neola rep and we went through the policies like we always do, reviewed them, just kind of looked at some of the options, made some initial choices to share with the board. And I am struggling right now to remember what the push was for this to be this new policy, and I think it may be related. Let's see if there's any citations at the bottom. There's a legal reference at the bottom, 118.01, and I don't know if it was a new law or a new policy that, or a new state rule that from the DPI saying to have this stated. So I can look up that question. That's why it's the first reading.
It is the educational goals and expectations. It basically is our statement to say that we are doing what the state has asked us to do.
Yeah. You looked at the statute?
I looked at the statute.
Yeah. So, good question. I can look at that and bring that back next month.
Because it's always, one of the things when I look at these is to not restrict Clear Lake's board's ability to do things and restrict things for the kids and for our staff. So we don't really want to have policies that have no point,
right?
Or some type of a hidden, or so I can study it too a little bit more.
To have to manage something that you don't need to, yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. And it's very, it's pretty bland, vanilla.
It's a
language
policy
throughout.
that exactly states the state statute.
Okay.
Is what it is.
Okay. It may be, and I will recheck with that. I'll ask our.
Yeah.
I can check and find the answer to that question if it's a requirement.
Yeah, it just says, new policy, state law requires, even if not in the policy packet.
Okay. So that's 2131 educational outcome goals and expectations, and I will look at that.
Thanks, Chris.
The next one is 2430 district sponsored clubs and activities. This is one that I had done just that in the past, Greg, where I had looked at it and said, I don't know that we need this policy. And then Ed corrected me and said, well, we have some of these other fiscal policies that were required that designate what a non-district sponsored or a non-district, and he said you kind of need this policy to support that. So it is one that I had kind of put off adopting, but it was one he highly recommended that we do. When we did our in-depth conversation on this, like I said, it was before Christmas break, and I've glanced through them, but I have not I ran out of time today to read them in depth like I was reviewing them again, hoping to review them again before our meeting. But the first option there is that it needs to meet, the first question is whether it could be approved. Let's see. Consider to be under the sponsorship of the board unless it meets one or more criteria stated above and has been approved by the district administrator. So we have typically done clubs or district sponsored activities on a trial basis, or not. It's not even something that costs the district any money necessarily. It doesn't have to always. And policy must be consistent with 6610. So that was the reason too why we, I believe, chose the district administrator one option. And then the other thing too is we chose the next option down below, option 1. The board expressly declines to create a limited open forum for clubs and activities initiated by students that cannot meet one of the 4 criteria above. So again, this would be if a group of students get together and just say, we want to have a XYZ club, and that would be option 2. We'd be kind of bound to kind of consider that. This is saying that it's not necessarily that venue of. We're saying there needs to be more of an adult who, students. Certainly things are student initiated, but they do it through then a staff member or adult to bring it to administration and bring it up the chain to be approved. So The next part there about non-district sponsored activities points out the board will not assume responsibility for planning, conducting, evaluating those non-district activities, nor will the district provide any funds for it. We did not include option C, which would not allow any member of the district staff to assist in the planning, conducting, or evaluating of any non-district activities during the hours when functioning as a member of the staff. We just felt that was a little bit overly, so if we've got a parent who happens to work here and they're also helping to plan a youth sports tournament and it's their lunch hour and they are, answering emails from other parents, that would be a little prohibitive, it felt like, so didn't adopt those. We also did not say that, we need to have, some of those extra...
the grade point average.
Basically, what we struck all that because all that is covered already by our student codes. We don't need that language. It's already covered by our activity code and our student handbook. So that's why we, again, don't want to add extra policy that we don't need. So, and again, this is first reading, so you get a chance between now and the next one to read them a little deeper. And then if you have, like, hey, what about this little clause here? And if you can, give me if you see something like that, give me a heads up or an email between, because then I can try to get a good answer for you before we come to the next meeting. But if you don't, and we have a question at the next meeting, we can always just table it too. We don't have to pass anything. You don't want to. The next one is administration and medication, and we didn't have a board policy for this. Highly recommended that we do. We have it covered in our student handbooks right now, but probably not to the extent that it probably meets the best practices of current law. And basically what I did with our Neola rep is went through and we talked about, okay, what are your current practices? We chose the options that match what we currently do, so as not to go against any of our current policies that are in our student handbooks right now.
All right, so this might be the time I could ask this question. Can we really not hand out a cough drop to a student?
We can.
We can?
But we have to have parent permission. And it kind of depends on their age too. But not without parent permission. But beginning of the year, parents can go in and sign off on things like hand lotion and sunscreen and stuff like that.
How about ibuprofen?
Depends on their... I believe that's one of the... I'm trying to think back to elementary. I think that might be one of the things that a parent can... The parent would have to provide that.
In this building, you can provide it and fill out a sheet that we give it to when it comes down.
Yeah.
Do that.
And I think at the elementary, the parent would have to provide it. And at the elementary, it would be kept in the office.
It's kept in the office.
It's kept in the office here as well. Yep.
Somebody kept it in their locker.
We would.
Yeah, Mrs. Mitchell used to keep it in her desk.
Mm-hmm. It's a little more tighter. It's a little tighter than that. Those days.
Remember that?
I do.
Was she still here when you were here?
I don't think so.
And it does get into the junior, senior high students may possess and self-administer their own non-prescription medications at school if the appropriate medication authorization form is filed in the school office, provided the student is in possession and self-administers in compliance. Maybe an inhaler. Well, an inhaler would be prescription. That's a bad example.
Well, like today, I sent Michael to school with some ibuprofen. I should have gotten something filled out.
Well, let me read this again.
Junior, senior high.
Junior, senior high. If the appropriate medication.
Technically, you should have something filled out, right? If he gets caught with his ibuprofen.
Sharing it with friends.
The next one that was kind of interesting was CBD products at school. And so the option, lawful hemp-derived CBD products may be stored at school in a specific location in its original packing and allowed for self-administration use under the supervision of school staff, subject to the appropriate physician certificate and parent documentation. So this would be similar to a prescription. Parent would have to fill out all the documentation, have to have a doctor note, and it would be in the office and administered by school staff. This is one that I've heard philosophical conversations about this too in a school law class, and actually, students who have certain maybe disabilities or certain mental health conditions or hyperactivity, that there's actually, legal, it has to be lawful, for the age and everything like that, prescribed by a physician, that there's actually, just that it's...
I would challenge it that says non-THC.
That would be illegal. That would be illegal. Yeah, it has to be lawful. Has to be lawful.
In
So
this
non-THC. Yeah.
There is CBDs that have THC that is lawful.
Not in this state, but
Not
other states
THC.
there is.
It's yeah. I don't think so. But it has to be lawful. Has to be parent approved. Has to be doctor approved. So I would think it would be the very rarest thing.
And Matt, age appropriate, so
Age.
even like your Delta, whatever it is, that
Right.
you still have to be 21 to purchase that. So
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So then it's not lawful for this age group.
I suppose, yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
makes sense.
The feeling was that it was better to have that flexibility there with all those limitations rather than just say absolutely not, So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
similar thing with the next one, their use of essential oils. We have had parents request and talk about, students who've had therapy that it assists them maybe with attention or with hyperactivity. I've seen those cases. Must seek prior approval from the principal in order to, along with all the other parent permission forms that go with that too. So in that sense that some of this is some stuff that's a little bit like we wouldn't normally think about, but I'm glad we have a policy so that now Mrs. Anderson or Mr. Melberg aren't sitting there going, I'm not sure, when faced with this question someday, what am I supposed to do? There's a policy here, so. Parents may administer medication at school or at school-sponsored events. So let's say you have a parent go with on a field trip, they can give their own child medicine. So. Obviously, no student is allowed to provide or sell any type of medication to another student. Considered violation of student code of conduct. Bus driver, staff member, volunteer, authorized in writing. Is immune from liability for their acts or omissions of administering medication if they're trained. They have to be trained for doing, unless they're a high degree of negligence. And again, the next one, the board allows staff to administer medication if they have the proper training, which has always been the case. Talks about using a registered nurse to help do your emergency nursing plan. We do have district provides for district acquisition maintenance of opioid antagonists, so like Narcan, you may have heard it called. And we do have a plan for that, and we did get trained this fall, certain staff, office staff, how to administer Narcan. Talks about EpiPens. We currently have stock EpiPens in our schools. Again, this just outlines the policy. We had to have rules in place for that. Currently, doctor, physician sign off. This just puts it in board policy. There wasn't anything in there that I read that was different than what we already do. So yeah, that's a big important one, I think.
Yeah, I'd say.
Questions? Other questions? Class rank, 5430. We did not have a board policy on class rank, and in fact, this is something Mr. Melberg and I had Mr. Melberg had identified and talked to me about, I should say, last year. That was something that we knew we needed to address, and we had language in our student handbook that kind of clarified how we would break ties for things like valedictorian, salutatorian, but it technically, and it's what's been used to determine class rank, but we really didn't have a policy in place. So this basically, bless you, there's certain items that need to be selected in order to be part of your academic excellence scholarship policy. So we needed to select all those. And then basically, if we approve this policy, then we as an admin team need to sit down and we actually need to write out we need to make a administrative rule policy using these guidelines. So
Like
we've got some
procedure?
homework. Yeah,
Do we have weighted grades?
we do.
So like your AP classes are on a 5-point scale?
Yep, just AP classes, and that's in our handbook. Yep. So, that one is kind of straightforward. It comes with some homework for us. The next one is 5460 graduation requirements. And once again, we were advised we have our graduation requirements in our student handbook, and they are in our course description handbook, but we want to have them in board policy as well. So basically, again, what we did is we went through to make sure that it matches exactly what we currently have, what is our reality. We added our unique class that we have, planning and decision making, for half credit. That's a required class for Clear Lake. We do have currently that the board can approve courses in career and tech ed that programs that may satisfy up to a total of 1 credit in math or science. We currently do have those crosswalk documents in place for a couple of classes. We've had that for a while, since it's been legal. And we did select down below, if you scroll down to page 3, alternative education diploma. So I think the only one of you that would have been around back when we had 1 year where we had the alternative ed program in 2010-11, and we had applied for a grant. And when we did that, I was high school principal at the time. We created what was termed as an alternative education diploma, or it was called a basic skills diploma, which is something that's allowed in statutes, which says if you just meet the minimum state required ones that are listed up above, that you can earn what's called an alternative ed diploma, or we called it a basic skills diploma at the time. And you can recognize a student as still having earned a diploma from Clear Lake High School, although it is called an alternative diploma. And it's reflected on their transcript what it is. So one of the things that we currently do is we have students who attend the HSED program, the High School Equivalency Diploma program. So the HSED does meet the basic skills or the alternative diploma classes that we offer. So one of the things that currently happens that kind of dings us on our graduation rates and so on is we have students who are academically not on track to graduate. So they go to HSED when they turn probably when they're 17, so they're juniors or seniors, and they go and they earn their HSED, and we don't get to count them as a graduate right now because they're not. They don't earn a Clear Lake High School diploma, and we get to count them as completers, which is not bad, but it's not as good as counting them as a graduate, and so it kind of hurts our graduation rate right now. So what we would be allowed to do with this policy now is we could say a student who earned an HSED would earn an alternative ed diploma. And so then with that, it's going to look different than our regular diploma. It's going to be reflected on their transcript as an alt ed diploma. But we can it's a diploma with basic skills, and they could then be counted as a graduate. They could participate in the ceremony if they wanted to, if they met all the other criteria for behavior and so on, attendance. And so this is, I think, a good thing that would allow us to benefit and be good for kids. So, and there's a process and procedure for kids to get into HSED. It's not like any student goes to HSED. They need to be credit deficient and so on. Any questions about that one? The next one, 5610, alternatives to expulsion and reentry plans. Again, when we went through this, we pretty much said, okay, what do we currently do? What are our current practices that we do? And how can we pick the policy that reflects that? So, for example, the first part talks about pre-expulsion conferences. These are some things that we have made use of in the past, right? So we have a student that has a behavior that could potentially result in expulsion. However, we deem that probably not to the extreme that we want to go to a full expulsion hearing, but we say, all right, we're going to put you to these exact criteria and these conditions, and if you meet these conditions, and the student signs it and the parent signs it, they have a meeting with myself and other administrator, and then, you know, if they meet these conditions, they are allowed to remain attending school, meet those conditions. If they violate the conditions, then they understand that it can go to an expulsion hearing with the board. So we selected letter E, which is just the catch-all, rather than limit it to those, rather than have those very specific language in there. We just said, you know, conduct that meets the criteria for potential expulsion, because the expulsion documents, expulsion statutes have that criteria laid out. So reentry plan, again, this is what we currently do. You know, typically, if we do have to take the step of expelling a student and the board expels a student, you know, we typically, unless it's the most egregious cases, we have a path for them to try to re-enter school. You know, maybe they're out for a semester, maybe they're out for a year, and then, you know, we have a path for them to try to rehabilitate back to school under conditions, and this is just laying out that we do that. And this extensive list here, A through N, gives examples of the types of things that you could put into a plan like that, and I really liked it because it gives us some good ideas of things that we maybe wouldn't have thought of ourselves. If you note the last thing, the pink part that's X'd out in this third to the bottom paragraph, it said, any record of the pre-expulsion conference and conditions will be expunged from the student's behavior record if the student does not violate the conditions of the reentry plan during the specified time. I wasn't comfortable leaving that in there. If a student has a pre-expulsion agreement their freshman year that goes through, let's say, the middle of their sophomore year, they meet the plan, this policy would say that gets shredded and forgotten about. Well, what if the junior year they have a similar violation? We would want that behavior record to be in their behavior folder, you know, to say, hey, you know, you had this same issue when you were a freshman. That should be taken into consideration by the administration or by the board with the potential expulsion. So I wasn't comfortable leaving that in there. Anything on that one? Okay, the last but not least, A390, animals on district property. This is another one that I think is helpful. Defines, makes some good definitions. Animal, service animal, emotional support animal, therapy dog, defines what they are, and then goes on to say what kind of, you know, things need to be in place for any of those to be present. Selected the one first about vaccination, licensing, or veterinary requirements. Don't know why you wouldn't pick that one. Talks about non-service animals. So, for example, right now we may have students who have, for show and tell day at the elementary school, they might get permission to fill out the pet form and bring an animal to school to display or to show, you know, and talk about with their classmates. And then what we did is we have a district-wide pet visiting form, so we added number 5 on there to continue that practice, that if you go through these procedures, and part of that is completing the school district pet visiting form, like we've always done.
All right, so if I could simplify this, can people bring animals to football games?
Depends on if it's a therapy dog, which we'd say, well, service animal. I guess it kind of depends. It's discouraged if it's not, yeah.
Well, okay, therapy dog, really what? Therapy dogs? What's a therapy dog?
Yeah. Well, and like, for example, we selected the, like, emotional support animal. We selected that an emotional support animal is not granted the same access to school buildings, classrooms, or as service animals. District is not required to grant students' requests that they permitted to bring an emotional support animal to class. We don't want to open that door, you know. You hear the funny stories about, you know, in jokes or whatever about, this is my emotional support I don't know what, I have to bring it on the plane with me or whatever. Like, we're not opening that door.
Well, that's why this, even as far as therapy dog, it's like, you know, if it's a service animal, I can see if somebody's blind, they need their dog to help them see.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen animals at our football games, and I'm like, what are they? Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
And the people that some of the people that could bring these animals to the football game are people that shouldn't bring their animals to the football game, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So does this policy say that the animals are not allowed on school premises? Because I've seen them at like softball games too.
Mhm.
Like just because the sport is outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that if that's what the
I
policy
have to go
saying.
back and look for that.
You might have to communicate that.
I don't know.
I think, and I gotta go. I'll have to look at this again myself.
I'm pro dogs going to softball games, but.
Yeah.
As long as you pick up after them.
Well,
Yeah.
they pick up after
Yeah,
them,
of
but like I
course.
say, some of these people will bring a pit bull to a thing, and,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he's a friendly dog. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? When my 6-year-old walks by and gets his face cut off,
Yeah.
I will have to say there's a lot of districts across the state that have been adding therapy dogs to their school systems, and they're doing very well with them. I've seen a lot of the research on that, and I think it's a good idea to have policy in there, because I think it's becoming a lot more common.
I think there's a big difference between bringing in a therapy dog and bringing in your pet.
I agree with
Yeah.
that, yes.
I don't think
so could we have in here that if you can bring your whatever, but permission ahead of time? So then that
Absolutely,
would give
it
us
all
liberty
is.
to say, get this dog out of
It
here.
absolutely is, yeah. And that's what's good about this is it makes definitions, it puts limitations on it. And you asked the question, or you asked, does this mean anyone can bring a dog
Yeah.
on campus? And I got to go back and review again to find if there's a line that specifically prohibits it. But I think also what the policy does is say, we have the right to regulate it. So if we have a dog that, if we want to just say, hey, we don't want any animals at football game, there's a big crowd, or if there's a concerning animal or whatever, we have the right to say, you don't have the right to have that here, which has been our practice, but I realize things happen that we don't know about, or people, someone walks their dog by, they're stop by the softball game and have their dog on the leash.
What
I
happens
understand.
if somebody does get bit on our premises, and insurance-wise, or?
Yeah,
It's
How
our
is that?
liability.
probably fall, be covered under our property and casualty, but yeah, it's, yeah.
I also see
Not a
those
situation.
spaces as public spaces too, and that people need places to go and have fun with their dogs too, and so, taxpayers pay for that space too, and it's a space we all share.
Say the same thing about smoking.
But yeah, of
Yeah.
course,
Where do you draw the line?
they do need
You
to
gotta
pick up after themselves, of course,
This does say, and we get questions from time to time about therapy dogs, and some people have different definitions. Some are actually trained as actual
Right.
licensed therapy dogs, and other people say, well, this is a therapy dog. Well, it's not really a therapy dog. But this gives some, actual teeth to a policy to say,
Right.
what is a therapy dog?
Yeah, I
We can't just
absolutely
be
agree to that.
willy-nilly somebody coming in saying, this is my dog, and he's really friendly,
Yep.
But yeah, it does give some nice, documentation and limitations and expectations. And then also that a dog can be removed or suspended if they're not meeting those needs, or even service animals can be removed or excluded if the service animal is causing a disruption, is not trained, and is making a mess or made a mess on the floor, or things like that. So I think it's right now. I was glad to see this policy come through, because it's something we've kind of talked about in the past and wrestled with, and I guess I was glad to see this come through, as it gives us a little clarity. So that's good. That's the good part. Talks about service animals on buses.
It's real.
And given the authority to the principals to be the ones to be the contact to kind of to help make a plan for how that's going to look. If you have a service animal and that owner, the child with the animal needs to go on a field trip or something like that, what does that look like? Coming up with a plan.
All right. Yep, that'll probably be useful.
Yeah.
This will be, yep.
Probably have a half an hour in contemplated closed session yet, so we should probably.
Yep.
Yep, let's get rolling. So, first reading we were done with. Next thing is the superintendent notes, Chris Peterson.
Okay. Speed reader. So I try to make notes of what's gone on since the last meeting, and again, go back to pre-Christmas. We had great holiday concerts at all the levels, especially when you consider we have new first year and second year director teacher leading the music programs. Great transition that they've done. We went to the Slate conference, which Mr. Melberg alluded to before, where the focus was on artificial intelligence, and that is a focus that we are diving into. We had a great staff holiday party, nice break. Winter sports is in full swing and the teams are doing well. We hosted a really nice, a nice wrestling quad last week with probably the fullest teams that I've seen in a number of years, and it was a very full night of wrestling with 4 teams with pretty full rosters, so that was good to see. We've begun participating in Dunstan Core meetings and networking. They've invited us to come to some of their meetings, and we've been doing a little bit of that, and while still engaging with the Lakeland. We got Second Friday People Count last week. We got you've heard about Act 20. Well, here we go. We got Ames Web Plus training that happened, and they're going to be doing the testing here this week, starting tomorrow. Started today. Okay. State Educational Convention is next week, and got 3 of you that are going. Quarter ends on Friday, in service next Monday. We got Spirit Week the week after that. We're having a pro wrestling event here on February 2nd, and all profits are going to be donated to the athletic department. So that's a nice thing. We're promoting that, supporting that. And they're running the whole thing, so no resources of ours. They're doing it all, but they're just using our facility, and then they're making that donation. So, in the future on the agenda, there's going to be some more Neola policy updates coming. I've got our insurance renewal. We got bids on it this year. That's been a process. Insurance renewal on the next meeting. Potential spring dual sports conversation at the next meeting, and then we're going to take a tour of the tech ed area for our spotlight on education next meeting too. So that was pretty fast, right?
Yeah, perfect. All right, let's move into our contemplated closed session. Pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paragraph 1C, the board will review the district administrator evaluation and consider employment, promotion, compensation, and performance of any employee. I will pull the board.
Yes.
Corey?
Yep.
Myself, yes. Christie?
Yep.
Matthew?
Yes.
All right, we're ready for closed session. Dale, thanks for coming in, being with us tonight. Principals, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Don't forget to vote in the election.
What's that, Dale? Oh, yeah.
So that I can send that.
We come back in, you can, yep. We're gonna adjourn shortly thereafter, though. Yep.
I gotta use the restroom quick.
All right, we'll wait for you, man.
Already fine. Oh, perfect. Oh, thanks. I'll send it over.
Put it in my pile of signatures.
Have a good night.
Yeah, Steve, you too. Okay, and that's on. All right, so we're back in open session. The next item of business is future agenda items. Anybody have anything that they want to put on a future agenda?
I know we're probably getting close to signing our next contract with ETS, so I'd like to maybe see if we can dig into that and see if it was worthwhile and maybe do some surveys or something. I don't know.
Like a student survey?
Yeah, just see how that's going, because that was quite a big contract. And
Okay, anybody have anything else they want to put on?
I listed a bunch of things in my report at the end too, so.
All right, so then the next item of business is to adjourn. I will entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
It's been properly moved and seconded. We adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.